Welcome to Heaven Awaits. My name is Leigh, and I narrate the near-death experiences of those who have died and have seen the other side. These videos are meant to bring hope to a sometimes hopeless world. If you enjoy these videos, please consider hitting the thumbs up, subscribe, and bell icons to be notified of new content. Doing so is free, and it does help the channel grow. Get comfortable, grab a cup of coffee or tea, and let's dive into today's experiences. Crying uncontrollably, I overdosed on Zoloft. As I was fading, in a soft voice, I looked up and said, "God, you don't want me here, so I am leaving." This was in November 2002. I passed out for a while, but to my surprise, I was still alive. My son and I had our mattresses on the floor. We shared a bedroom. I was watching him sleep beside me. I prayed for his dad to come to take him so he could have a great house to live in. I had lost all my possessions and could barely supply food. I considered myself a failure. While my son slept, my head began to hurt. The pain behind my left ear felt like a knife was going through it. My neck felt like it was on fire. I could not move. I was paralyzed. My eyes moved. That's it. I was lying on my left side in the fetal position. The feeling of large clamps holding my body down made me feel heavy. My brain felt as though someone was performing surgery. My eyes were open, and I watched Mason sleep. I was not able to think, nor could I analyze this situation. It felt as though I was not connected to my body. My body and my mind were completely separated. I wasn't up above my body, but I knew what my body looked like lying there. More like I was beside it. My eyes never closed. The sun came up, and my son awoke. I still could not move. My son checked on me, crying and yelling for me to get up. I whispered to let him know it was okay. My response was standard, similar to when people say, "How are you?" and people respond fine, just responding, but not thinking of it. My son, 9 years old, would come to check on me, back and forth from the living room. He even tried to get me to drink water with a straw. I couldn't move my head or drink. My son said he was scared to touch me because my skin was pure white. I stayed separated from my body. I could see everything, though. I just couldn't comprehend what was going on. I could see the window as another night passed. I began to smell. My son said I peed myself. I didn't feel it. My son began yelling and crying very loudly. He yelled over and over, "Get up!" While still in the same position, I felt a pain in my chest. Excruciating, like I was stabbed with a knife 3 to 4 times. I still couldn't move, but I could feel all my organs. An overwhelming pain would be in an organ, then suddenly it stopped, just like it shut off. The same thing happened to the next organ, then the next. All that was left was my heart beating slower and slower until I could barely feel it. This was it. I am about to die. In my head I said, "I want to live." Then I whispered, "I want to live." Then, as loud as I could, "I want to live." In front of my eyes was a pale vision, a being that looked like Jesus, and next to him, a being that looked the same. When I looked at one, the other faded, and when I looked at the other, the first one faded. At the end was a cloud-type being. Suddenly, I took a huge, gasping breath. I breathed in some of the clouds. My heart was beating. Out loud, I just kept repeating over and over, "I want to live." My son said, "What is going on?" I told him to push me, get me flat on my back. Staring at the top of my foot, I said over and over inside my head, "Move, move." A long time passed before I could barely move my toes. I whispered to my son to go into the living room, and I promised I would come out. I told God how sorry I was for trying to commit suicide. I thanked him for this chance and promised I would not screw it up. God's grace gave me this opportunity because I should have gone to hell. There was no light for me. While I was dying, I felt like hell. It was a void for me, a horrible void, an indescribable, lonely, ugly, horrible feeling. For me, it was like I had one leg in hell and one leg in heaven. My hopelessness brought me a taste of hell, but Jesus saved me at the last moment. I told God that He was in control and greater than evil. I was no longer afraid of evil, and I told Him I would stay on this earth and be a good mother. Through pure grace, God enabled me to crawl to the living room. We did not have a phone, so my son went next door and called 911. I was in the ER for 3 days. Because it was a suicide attempt, they moved me to a mental hospital. I didn't care because I was alive. My life has changed so much. My son's life too. Oh, I am so grateful for everything, every minute. You can ask me anything. I would love to share my story to help in research, or anyone, for that matter. I am proud of it. It is the worst and the best experience I've ever had. Thank all of you for doing this research. That does it for our first near-death experience, moving right along into our second experience. On the morning of October 25th, 2001, I called in sick to work. It's not that I felt sick, I just didn't feel completely right. So, I stayed home and rested. In the early evening, about 5 p.m., I went with my husband to an event that we already had tickets for. After the event, my husband went to the gym and I went home. Around 7 that evening, I started having increased pain. I tried to vomit, but that didn't help. I got online and tried to figure out what was wrong with me, but I couldn't pinpoint it. The pain got much worse. I called my husband at the gym and asked him to come home and take me to the emergency room. At this point, I couldn't even drive. We got to the emergency room and waited for about an hour, with me groaning the whole time. After a while, they were able to figure out what was wrong with me. I had a very large kidney stone stuck in my ureter. They admitted me and told me I would stay in the hospital at least overnight. They put me on a morphine PCA pump. That is the kind where the patient can give themselves a small dose of morphine every 10 minutes or as needed. The next day, October 26th, 2001, passed uneventfully, except that at 8 p.m., the pump malfunctioned and was not sending any medicine to me. I remember very well that the nurse had a heck of a time getting it to work. My husband left a little while later. I do not remember going to sleep, but apparently I did. I fell asleep on my right side, which is normal for me. While asleep, I vomited and inhaled the vomit back into my lungs. This caused me to go into respiratory arrest. What I do remember is this. I was in a very, very black room, blacker than I have ever seen. I do not think that I was conscious of anything for a while, kind of like nothing mattered. I remember that it was very quiet and peaceful there. To me, it seemed as though this was a blank room with nothing in it but me. I did not have a body. For a long while, there was no sound. After a bit, I started feeling uncomfortable. That is the best word I can use. I got it into my head that it was a lie. Whatever it is, I do not know. This lie theme became almost a mantra in my head. Then I started hearing occasional bursts of what sounded like TV or radio static. Then I started hearing my name and other words come through the static occasionally. When I started hearing my name, I began to feel as though this might be something worth listening to. So, I listened. I struggled to listen. Somewhere around here, I became conscious of things. The nurses and doctors were feverishly trying to get me to respond. I could not talk to them. I could only listen. Finally, I was able to talk to them, the doctors and nurses. I was back in the real world. At some point, I realized that I could not see, though my eyes were wide open. I have a huge fear of blindness because I have glaucoma. After a while, I was able to see shades of lighter grays. I could see color, and then I could see shapes. Finally, I could see. They had me answer a whole bunch of questions. It was very strange to me because I could not understand why there were so many people in my room. I was very disoriented. Then, when my eyesight had restored itself, I started describing the individuals closest to me. At the foot of my bed was my nurse. She asked me if I remembered who she was. I did. And that is when I remembered that I was in the hospital and something horrible must have happened for this many people to be with me. They sent me to the ICU for the weekend. I ended up with inhalation pneumonia in both lungs, more in the right lung. I found out later that they do not know how long I was in my room in respiratory arrest. The CNA had come in to do a vitals check, and I did not respond. She turned on the light and found me severely cyanotic, blue, and completely unresponsive. She called for an RN stat, who was my RN. The RN took one look at me and punched the code button on the wall. When the code team arrived, it took 15 minutes for them to revive me. The defibrillator team was waiting right outside my door. They thought I was a goner. I can only say that I was completely at peace in that black room. Nothing bothered me there. When it did, I think my mind tried to shut it out and ignore it by calling it a lie. I think it was hard to resuscitate me because I did not want to leave that peaceful place. Hard to explain. I am no longer completely afraid of dying because I now know how peaceful it is. That does it for our final near-death experience. What did you all think of today's video? Do you think that she was right to question God and ask why he abandoned her? The second experience brought back horrible memories for me, as I too have experienced kidney stones. Luckily, my machine didn't malfunction when giving me the medicine, but still, the pain those things cause is some of the worst. Anyway, I would love to see what you all thought about the stories in today's video. Until next time, stay safe and continue to be blessed.